Adrian Shephard has always been known as sort of the black sheep of the Half-Life franchise, even jokingly referred to as being a Schrodinger's cat by Mark Laidlaw. Adrian has always been that thought in the back of every Half-Life fan's mind, trapped in the void waiting to be let out or not. But what I've never heard anyone ask themselves about is, why is Adrian Shephard so important to the franchise in the first place? In fact, why is the G-Man so involved with Adrian Shephard's path through Black Mesa? Meanwhile, he's just watching Gordon Freeman by the sidelines. Why is it that the G-Man doesn't really care if Gordon lives or dies just as long as he completes his assignment, but then go out of his way to not only save Adrian's life, but also keep him in the void from any form of danger? Even when Gordon is taken away by the Vortigaunts, the G-Man is just annoyed, and instead of putting Gordon back in stasis, he just replaces him with Alex. Why does the G-Man care so little about the one person who not only gave him and his employers complete control of Zen, but also completed his assignment in Half-Life 2, yet cares so much about an HECU grunt who stopped an alien invasion that not even most of the fanbase finds canon? What if I told you something about Adrian Shephard that you've never heard anyone else talk about before? What if I told you that Gordon Freeman becoming basically a legendary figure in the Half-Life series was an accident? What if I told you that Gordon was never meant to be chosen by the G-Man in the first place? What if I told you that Adrian Shephard was supposed to be the one to go to Zen, kill the Nihilith, get hired by the G-Man, and assassinate Dr. Breen in Half-Life 2? What if I told you why Adrian Shephard was supposed to be the protagonist of the Half-Life series? Now, before I start explaining this theory, I just want to mention that this theory isn't entirely original, but was rather a Reddit post I saw more than a few months ago. Now, even though this post was made about a year ago, there's actually another Reddit post that was made 5 years ago presenting the same theory. And even another Reddit post asking why did G-Man detain Adrian instead of hiring him. One of the comments below tells the same theory again. And after looking into the details of the G-Man, not only does this theory make a lot of sense, but it also makes the Half-Life series as a whole a lot more unique and makes both Gordon and Adrian as characters a lot cooler in the grand scheme of things. Now, I will be linking both of these Reddit posts in the description below. However, not only will I be going over everything in these posts, but I'll also go over certain details I don't agree with, while adding some additional evidence to what I think happened in the Half-Life series to support this theory. Now, before I get into the analysis, I just wanted to mention that the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place was mostly because I haven't found any videos on YouTube discussing this theory, so I felt the need to explain it here. Now, I've been wanting to make this video for a few months now, but I haven't found the time to do so. However, something came up. Something came to my mind, which not only kept me up at night, but absolutely made me want to immediately start working on this video. I'll explain what came to my mind later, but for the meantime, let's explore what this theory has to offer. Shall we? Now, both of these Reddit posts tell almost the same thing. However, I'll be mostly going over the more recent posts, since that one has a bit more details to it. Here, this post reads, I believe that the Black Mesa incident happened not just so that someone like Gordon would reclaim the border world Zen, but to also find the perfect candidate to use as a pawn in his chess game. And I believe that Corporal Adrian Shephard was the original candidate that G-Man wanted to hire. Now, we don't exactly know what the G-Man's endgame is, however, we do know that he and his employers wanted control of Zen, but couldn't due to the Nihilith. So they needed to find the perfect candidate to take it down. But what we can speculate is that the G-Man wanted to sell his perfect candidate to other G-Man type beings, judging by his dialogue from the ending to Half-Life 2.
You've done a great deal in a small time span. You've done so well, in fact, that I've received some interesting offers for your services.
Before the Black Mesa incident even happened, the AGCU were already preparing to come to the research facility, after being warned by the G-Man. All of this is evident thanks to the journal that Corporal Adrian Shephard wrote. March 3rd. Another typical day at base camp. I'll be glad when this is over and I can get assigned a mission. There has been this really weird civvy spotted at the base. Rumor is he's from some government branch looking to recruit. Others say he's with some secret research group. I would jump at the chance to join. It would be cool just for the change and the adventure. March 7th. I finally saw the government guy today. I'm not sure he is a G-Man, but he was wearing a really uptight suit and carrying a briefcase. He looked more like a lawyer or insurance agent to me. I did notice him checking me out. Several times throughout the day I spotted him just watching me during training. I wonder what he's up to. March 9th. For weeks our drills have been the same day after day. Today we assemble for the morning run, and our drill instructor tells us we have 1 week to become experts at indoor strategic combat. We will be spending every day this week at the combat simulation facility. As far as I know, this is a specialized training not taught in boot camp. What I want to know is if this is to test our ability to adapt, or if we are being readied for a specific mission. Time will tell. March 12th. The rumors have been flying since our indoor combat training began. Most of my peers are convinced that we are being primed for a mission. No one can agree what the mission is. I have heard the name Black Mesa Facility thrown around a lot, but I have no information about the place. The rumors are that some top secret research is going on there. Doesn't sound too exciting to me. March 15th. The rumor has been confirmed. We are being trained for a mission at the Black Mesa Facility. All I know is that the place is being used by scientists who are doing some kind of new research. I can't imagine what we would be needed for. We were told today to be ready in case it happens tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but the whole thing is a little strange. I kind of hope it doesn't happen. The mission doesn't seem to have much excitement potential. I'd rather hold out for something with more likelihood of combat. These journals also suggest that the G-Man has been keeping a close eye on Shepard's training progress, which is also something we haven't seen in the Hazard course. This is due to the fact that the G-Man didn't have to do anything to manipulate Gordon into doing the Hazard course, since Gordon was required to do the Hazard course during the standard orientation process. Unlike Gordon, however, the G-Man had to bump Adrian to the top of the advanced training list in order to prepare him for the Black Mesa incident. Anyways, now that all the prologue stuff is out of the way, I think it's time we take a look at where the Half-Life game actually starts. Continuing the more recent post reads, now, you might be saying, okay, so why did G-Man keep him in stasis instead of hiring him during the end of opposing force? A simple explanation. Gordon, resilient as he manages to survive through the chaos and find his way through Zen and kills the Nihilith. During the beginning of Half-Life, we never really see Gordon being constantly stalked by G-Man until the Resonance Cascade. Sure, the G-Man checked up on him during the tram ride, but I really think he was just checking to see if the man who was supposed to start the Resonance Cascade was coming to work since Gordon was late for work that day. Now, this part doesn't really make sense to me. If G-Man has the power to see through multiple timelines in order to pick out the perfect candidate and how to cause the Resonance Cascade to happen in the first place, then how is Gordon being late a surprise to G-Man? Not only that, but isn't Gordon being late the reason why last-minute adjustments were made to the anti-mass spectrometer? That being said, there still is a reason as to why the G-Man was watching Gordon during the tram ride, which we'll get to later. Now, I want to take a look at the original post real quick, since there's some information here to be explored. Given all of this information, it is possible that the G-Man wanted Adrian Shephard to be the one to kill the Nihilith instead of Gordon Freeman, since Shephard is a highly trained soldier who is eager for combat, while Freeman is a scientist with no combat experience. This correlates with the fact that in the initial sightings of the G-Man in HL1, he paid no attention to Freeman until after the incident. However, when the incident happens and Shephard is deployed to Black Mesa, his helicopter crashes and he is left unconscious for most of the HL1 story. Meanwhile, Gordon Freeman proves himself to be a reliable fighter and a survivor after defeating the HECU, the Tentacles, and the Gargantua, and the G-Man starts following his progress with great interest. When Freeman is captured by the HECU, the G-Man appears to lose interest in him, and he is not seen by Freeman in a long time. As Freeman escapes and continues his journey through Black Mesa, Shephard wakes up and begins fighting his way out, and the G-Man renews his interest in him, and even interferes to save his life from a certain death. Now, even though Gordon was given basic firearms training during the Hazard course, this part makes sense to me. However, this part does not. I don't believe Shephard getting shot down was not on the G-Man's flowchart. In fact, doesn't Shephard getting shot down make his journey to the Lambda Complex a lot easier and quicker? We already know that the military was contacted during Office Complex, and incoming happened sometime before the end of duty calls. So, wouldn't it make sense for Adrian to spend about 10 hours to reach the Lambda Labs from chapters 2 through 6? Instead of taking Gordon's journey, which takes at least over a day and a half from chapters 4 through 14. Another thing that doesn't really make sense to me is G-Man losing interest in Gordon after he gets captured at the end of Apprehension. We know that Shephard wakes up during the events of Surface Tension, and there's 2 chapters before that where Gordon is still making his way through Black Mesa, like he has before. So it doesn't make sense for Shephard to be the reason why G-Man doesn't watch him during residue processing or questionable ethics. And no, Black Mesa doesn't count. Around this time, the Race X aliens start teleporting to Black Mesa and arrive en masse when Freeman leaves for Zen. It is possible that the G-Man arranged for the Race X to arrive to test Shephard against stronger enemies. When Freeman arrives at the Lambda Complex, the G-Man realizes that Freeman is closer to killing the Nihilith, so he renews his interest in him and starts following his progress again. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I have zero clue how many strings the G-Man was pulling behind the scenes, but I don't believe he was pulling all of them. I feel like just like the Combine, Race X showed up because they noticed all the commotion going on at Black Mesa. Anyways, with all that out of the way, we're about to reach the end of both of these Reddit posts. So I think it's time we finish explaining how Adrian Shephard was supposed to go to Zen and kill the Nihilith before getting cut off near the end. Finishing the more recent Reddit post reads, when Corporal Adrian Shephard arrives in the Lambda Complex, Shephard sees Gordon jumping into the teleporter, taking him directly to Zen. Gordon during this time is jumping around in 0Gs, killing every alien in sight in Zen, while Shephard is still fighting for his life in Black Mesa. G-Man, finding out Shephard had lost his chance of proving himself, sets him on a new path, stopping the Race X from teleporting a massive gene worm through Earth to the people who haven't played Opposing Force yet. Now, something I wanted to point out is, have you ever noticed how the G-Man only interferes with Shephard's journey through Black Mesa before Gordon jumps into Zen? Afterwards, all of the G-Man does is just watch Adrian above a trash compactor, talking on the phone right beside the dam, and reactivate the nuke that was supposed to destroy the facility. Okay, maybe G-Man does intervene on that last part, but Shephard was never supposed to be there in the first place, so... Finishing the original Reddit post reads, when Freeman succeeds, the G-Man offers him the job that was supposed to be offered to Shephard. When Freeman accepts the offer, the G-Man is ordered by his employers to eliminate Shephard, to leave no witnesses of their plan. However, Shephard continues fighting the Race X and kills the Gene Worm, so the G-Man is able to convince his employers to spare his life, But since Freeman already accepted the job, Shephard is detained until further notice. This is just a theory that I saw someone bring up, and I further developed. Wait, someone else had this theory beforehand? See, this part makes a lot more sense than G-Man wanting Shephard to kill the Gene Worm. And it makes a lot more sense as to why the G-Man specifically detains Shephard instead of outright just eliminating him. Because even though Shephard didn't complete his task, he still survived against all odds without the G-Man guiding him. And not only that, but stopped the Race X invasion in the process. I mean, I know that the Gene Worm would have probably been nuked or destroyed by the Combine anyway, but still, doesn't that mean Adrian Shephard proved himself further more than the G-Man saw in him? God, no wonder people want Adrian Shephard back so badly. He's like the
ultimate badass. Yeah.
Looking at some of the comments from these Reddit posts, we can see people have theories of their own that strengthen the idea of Adrian Shephard being the original candidate for G-Man. One comment in particular also brings up some of the points I've made, debunking certain details from one of the Reddit posts. However, one of the replies even points out how Adrian could have made it to Zen in the first place, despite the HECU and the scientists being enemies. With regards to your point about how would Shephard teleport to Zen to fight the Nihilith, I think it is simple. The G-Man pulled strings with government officials to create the HECU and have them train for indoor combat around hazardous materials, as seen in the training level of opposing force. After the incident, the military will come and take complete control of the facility, including the Lambda complex. The military will then force the scientists to operate the teleporter and send troops to Zen. The G-Man will have to influence the government officials to send troops to Zen to kill the Nihilith. Notice how at the end of Half-Life 1, there is a scene with the dead soldiers and destroyed tanks in Zen, indicating that military launched an invasion of Zen that ended up failing. Disregarding this last part due to the fact that this part of G-Man's speech has the wrong skybox, and is supposed to take place on Earth due to there being regular vehicles and sand. But I do honestly believe the HECU would successfully take control of the Lambda Labs in order to stop the invasion themselves, if Gordon didn't make it in time. And I can even tell you how and why they're able to take control of the Lambda Labs. Firstly, Shephard enters the Lambda Lab through a vent without issue. Secondly, depending on how many soldiers you save in friendly fire, you can have up to 6 soldiers in your squad. 4 of them are just a short tram ride away to the Lambda Labs themselves, while 2 of them are not too far behind and can easily make their way to your location without issue. Thirdly, 2 of the soldiers in your squad are engineers and can easily break down the doors in order to get inside the Lambda Labs, or they can just use satchel charges to blow it open. Lastly, there are 3 HEV suits that Adrian and 2 other soldiers could use for their travel to Zen. Now, one comment I would like to point out again is this comment debunking the theory, specifically the first point he makes. He paid no attention to Freeman until after the incident, so why did he show up on that train directly across from Gordon when Gordon's train stopped for a while? He had no reason to be in that train, especially when he appeared in anomalous materials sooner than Gordon. How he probably got there? And we don't know if he hadn't seen him before. Now, I'm pretty sure we can all assume that the G-Man wasn't watching Gordon during anomalous materials. He just happens to notice Gordon as he's busy talking with another scientist. But the part I want to bring up is the part where he states that the G-Man had no reason to be on that train watching Gordon. Except, there is a reason. There is a reason G-Man was watching Gordon on that train. It's in fact the same reason that the G-Man watches Gordon in the first place. To put it simply, G-Man wasn't watching Gordon because he is resilient and able to live through the chaos. G-Man was watching Gordon because he was resilient and able to live through the chaos. Gordon wasn't being watched because he was capable enough to kill the Nihilith, but because he did kill the Nihilith. Because he cut Shephard off near the end of his adventure. What I'm saying is that the reason why the G-Man was on that train watching Gordon, even though Adrian Shephard was his main pick, is because the G-Man can time travel. don't know how people forget about this major detail with the G-Man. This specific power that the G-Man has gets forgotten and questioned, even though he specifically showed us before that he can time travel. How in the world do you forget that the G-Man can time? Anyways, what I'm getting at is that every G-Man appearance in the original Half-Life, excluding anomalous materials, is actually G-Man from the future. And every G-Man appearance in Opposing Force after Gordon goes to Zen is actually G-Man after he hires Gordon. After making sure Shephard stays on the right path, but then eventually ends up in the wrong place, the G-Man goes back in time to see who was responsible for beating Adrian to Zen, then observe as to how he had even made it so far in a long period of time, and then changes his mind at the very end by recruiting Gordon. In fact, we have seen something similar happen later on in the timeline. At the beginning of Half-Life 2 Episode 1, we see the Vortigaunts steal Gordon away from the G-Man, to which the G-Man says,
We'll see about that.
Afterwards, the G-Man goes back in time, 5 years from then, and finds a new recruit. Alex Vance. If the G-Man can time travel from Half-Life 2 Episode 1 to Half-Life Alyx, then who's to say he didn't time travel from Opposing Force to the original Half-Life? You know, now that I think about it, I guess this makes what the G-Man said at the start of Half-Life 2 have an entirely different meaning now.
The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world.
Picture this. It is the 90s, in an alternate universe where Half-Life never came out. Both of the most popular first-person shooter games were both Doom and Quake, both of which having nearly the same plots as each other, where you play as a soldier making his way through a scientific facility, battling beings from another dimension, before making your way to said dimension and killing the final boss / the main being responsible for the invasion in the first place. After which, another game comes out a couple years later with the same premise. This new first-person shooter is called Opposing Force. Except, Opposing Force is a little different. A bit better in certain aspects. For one, Opposing Force has a training mode, which teaches new players the ropes of the game. Literally.
Acceptable. A rope we could use. Help me, Gordon!
Another is, instead of being alone on your journey from start to finish, you get to have your own squad mates, who aren't just corpses on the ground. And even other friendly NPCs like scientists and security guards. This new FPS also features a new rope climbing mechanic, NPCs having bone structure, voice acting, no cutscenes, and etc. The game has 10 chapters instead of 13. Chapter 1 starts off by being an introduction to all the chaos, instead of reading about all the chaos in a manual. Chapter 1's opening is also very similar to Quake 2's opening, where you crash land to your objective. Chapter 2 being your standard knee-deep in the dead chapter, where you make your way through the facility, fighting low-tier enemies with low-tier weapons. Even the PCV looks a lot like a basic armor item you would find in Doom or Quake, except instead of starting the game with a pistol and your fists, or one-barrel shotgun and an axe, you start out the game with nothing. Well, before finding a wrench. Good luck! Chapter 3 is more like an epilogue to Chapter 2, where it looks like you're about to escape the facility before something happens, which keeps you still trapped here. Similar to the level in Doom, Phobos Anomaly, where after making it to the end of the first episode, it looks like Doom Guy's about to go through a portal to Earth, but gets ambushed instead. Chapter 4 is your more platforming and puzzle-solving level, where instead of making your way through hospitals and labs, you go through sewers and warehouses. Except now you fight tougher enemies and have better weaponry. Chapter 5 is the more combat-focused chapter, where you not only team up with other soldiers, but you also shoot different soldiers that were sent to kill you. Chapter 6 is similar to Doom or Quake in the end of its plot, where instead of closing the portal to stop the invasion, which didn't work anyway, you instead go to the other dimension yourself to stop the one in charge of the invasion. After breaking into the Lambda labs, you and your squad mates hold the Lambda team hostage. Afterwards, the Lambda team informs you on the situation at hand, where they offer you a special suit with a launch up module designed for better travel in the border world, as well as more powerful weaponry, almost like having the plasma gun or the BFG 9000 in Doom. After the Lambda team opens the portal to Zen, you jump right in to find yourself in the border world. Chapter 7 is a boss chapter where you have to fight the mother of all headcrabs. Chapter 8 is similar to the Doom episode Inferno, where you have to fight your way through different parts of the border world, like islands, caves, and factories. Each map even ends the same like a Doom level would. Chapter 9 is the final boss chapter, where you finally fight a boss that doesn't feel like a Quake boss, and finish the game. Chapter 10, of course, is your epilogue chapter, which teases the sequel, that being a potential Opposing Force 2. And then, to cap it all off in the end, an Opposing Force 3. Now, after all is said and done, was this idea planned from the start by Valve? Probably not. However, was this idea set in motion by both Valve and Gearbox, and was actually what Opposing Force was truly about? Maybe. Do I think that this theory is true now? Well, I'm gonna be honest, yes. Honestly, this theory being true makes the Half-Life series a lot more special as a whole. Gordon Freeman really being just some guy who accidentally happened to become a hero and a legend, while Adrian, who was actually chosen to be the series' Doom guy, or Ranger, went off course and became the ultimate badass. Even replaying Opposing Force for this video, throughout the first half of the game you get this sort of, oh, it's just DLC where you play as a soldier vibe, mostly with the generic shooter gameplay. And even the music, which people on YouTube have compared to it sounding like Doom or Quake. But then, halfway through, the first track that plays when Adrian comes back to Black Mesa from Zen has this eerie vibe, like Adrian is in a place he should not be, and has no clue as to where he even is. Afterwards, the chapters that play out feel more like Half-Life chapters than episodes from Doom. We Are Not Alone is basically the chapter Zen, except it's a level longer. Crush Death has the same vibe as Unforeseen Consequences. Vicious Reality takes place in the Biodome Complex, which are different exhibits studying all the different types of aliens, much like Questionable Ethics. Pitworm's Nest is basically a blast pit clone. Foxtrot Uniform feels like We've Got Hostiles, taking place outside, but still in the facility. The package feels more like Surface Tension, shooting your way through the canyons of the Mesa, using a cannon-like mechanism to progress, while being in a full-on military versus alien battle. Worlds Collide feels like Power Up, still fighting soldiers while killing a boss at the end. And of course, Conclusion feels like the chapter Endgame. Basically what the Half-Life and Opposing Force storyline is just switching the later half of the chapters with one another. In fact, one thing that I noticed while replaying Opposing Force is that, have you ever noticed how all the new mechanics they teach you during boot camp mostly appears during the actual game until after Gordon goes to Zen? First of all, you have the PCV recharge unit, which only shows up in the game once, just before Shephard makes it to the Lambda Labs. Then you have the ropes, which not only did Adrian have to climb up one and swing on top of the elevator, but he also had to swing from rope to rope like he did in training. But then after Gordon goes to Zen, we don't see another rope ever again all the way up until the very end of the game. And then the sniper rifle, which, okay, I guess you don't get the sniper rifle until way later in the game, but they probably would have given you one for your trip to Zen, but the engineer was able to break down 3 doors for you before Shephard made it to the Lambda Labs. But again, after that, the only useful thing he does is open a metal grate for you. The medic is an interesting one, as he is useful throughout the whole game, but he only has a scripted sequence where he helps out an injured engineer once before Gordon's departure to Zen. And lastly, there's the radio, which is the only thing that stays consistent throughout the game. However, that being said, there is one problem with this theory that could potentially debunk it all. Normally I would say, I don't know how this theory couldn't be true if it wasn't for this one issue. That being, if the G-Man planned everything to find the perfect candidate, if the G-Man had multiple contingency plans to keep Adrian on the right track, then there's just one remaining question. How in the world did the G-Man completely miss Gordon in the first place? If the G-Man could plan a roadmap for the Resonance Cascade, then how could he miss Gordon? How could G-Man miss the one man that has slaughtered the most HECU soldiers out of anyone? How could G-Man completely miss the one guy that is on everyone's mind during the Black Mesa incident? You see, that's the thing. I don't know. Well, except for the fact that the only way for G-Man to completely miss Gordon in the first place is for the theory to be true. For those of you who have made it to the end of the video and have watched the whole thing, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching. And I'm glad you enjoyed my first scripted video. This was actually a very different video to make, and I'm glad I made it in the first place. That being said, do you still find this theory to be true despite the debunk? Do you yourself have supporting evidence that adds to the theory that I haven't mentioned yet? Well, then please leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are, because I'm curious to hear them. After all that's said and done, I'm glad you enjoyed me discussing this unpopular theory, and hopefully this theory will be popular among the fanbase. And hey, maybe, just maybe, the fanbase themselves will debunk the debunk. Who knows? Maybe someday I will figure out why the G-Man missed Gordon going to Zen. Except, I already have. Do you remember, near the beginning of the video, I said that I've been wanting to make this video for a few months now, but then something came up which made me immediately start working on the video? It was just one Sunday night where I was just lying in bed about to fall asleep before having to work in the morning. It was exactly 1 a.m. when suddenly an image came to my mind. One image that had me thinking so much that it nearly kept me up the whole night. One image that not only makes Gordon a lot more special than he is, but also the thing that debunks the debunk. This is the reason why that the G-Man completely missed Gordon Freeman in the first place.